Do you think we could begin right here? Those words slipped out like silk, drifting down the dim hallway and lingering between them, both forbidden and beautiful. Darkness had claimed the entire office building as Alex Carter quietly wheeled his cleaning cart through the silent corridors. His footsteps echoed softly on the polished tiles, mingling with the gentle clinking of bottles and supplies. This was the only time Alex felt at ease, after everyone had left, when no one noticed his quiet presence. He had just finished mopping the 25th floor hallway, where the offices of the company's highest executives lay. Nearly all the lights were off, save for a faint glow spilling from one room, Sarah Williams' office. She was the young widow who'd risen to become CEO. Alex knew this well, because every Thursday night he left a cup of Earl Grey tea, her favorite, just outside her door. As usual, he'd place the cup gently on the small table beside the door, adjusting it until it sat perfectly centered. But before he could turn away and push the mop onward, a soft voice behind him made him freeze. "Do you think we could start right here?" Alex spun around, his heart pounding as if he'd been caught in the act. Standing before him was Sarah Williams, the most powerful woman in the company. She stood barefoot, leaning lightly against the doorframe, the soft backlight caressing her slender figure. Her deep blue dress hugged her silhouette, accentuating the gentle yet resolute lines of a woman who had weathered many storms. "I'm sorry. I don't understand," Alex murmured, his voice trembling, utterly unprepared for this moment. He had never spoken to her directly. Their interactions were always one-sided, quiet and discreet. Sarah stepped closer, tightening the space between them. Her dark eyes studied Alex as though trying to read his soul. In that moment, time seemed to pause. Every external sound vanished, leaving only Alex's rapid heartbeat. "I asked if we could begin right here, right now," Sarah repeated, her tone still soft but weighted with intent. Alex gripped the mop handle, palms slick with sweat. He wasn't accustomed to meeting someone's gaze like this, especially not someone he'd admired from afar, a woman he believed he'd never have the right to approach. "I'm just the cleaner," Alex stammered, eyes fixed on the floor, as though hiding from her question. Sarah took another step forward. Now, they were a single breath apart. The faint scent of her perfume drifted over him, making his head swirl. He had never imagined being this close to her. "No," Sarah said softly, a reassuring smile touching her lips. "Tonight, you're not the cleaner. Tonight, you're the one who cares for me, who has always supported me in silence, who leaves a cup of Earl Grey outside my door every Thursday." Alex lifted his gaze to hers, astonishment and emotion shining in his eyes. He had never imagined his small acts mattered so much to her. I never thought you even noticed," he managed. Sarah smiled and gently placed the cup in her hand down on the small table, almost merging it with the one Alex had left. "You have seen me," she said, "so why shouldn't I see you?" Alex stood frozen, his throat tight, overwhelmed by feelings he couldn't articulate. In that moment, he no longer felt like an invisible figure in the shadows, but a real man with value and genuine emotions. Sarah turned and stepped back into her office, leaving the door ajar. Alex watched her graceful retreat, his heart pounding more fiercely than ever. He drew a deep breath to calm his racing thoughts. The warm glow from the office still beckoned. Part of him longed to follow Sarah through that door, while another part feared that crossing the threshold would change his world forever. Finally, Alex quietly picked up his mop and continued down the hall. But his heart knew one truth. The story between him and Sarah had truly begun, right here, in this unexpected moment. Since that night, Alex and Sarah's meetings unfolded as gently and quietly as a soft nocturne. warm enough to comfort their hearts, yet discreet enough to draw no outside attention. Sarah slowly dismantled the invisible defenses Alex had built around himself. Thick walls erected over years of living in the shadows, silently enduring the invisibility society had imposed on a man like him. Every Thursday evening she'd leave her office door ajar, the soft golden glow spilling out like a private invitation. Alex would always pause, place his cup of Earl Grey on the desk, hesitate for a moment, and then turn away. It was as if he wondered whether Sarah was waiting for him again, whether this time he'd be allowed to cross the invisible line between them. One late autumn night, Boston's chill wind pounded against the window panes, as though trying to awaken lonely souls. Alex set down the tea and was about to leave when Sarah's familiar voice called softly but decisively from behind him. "Alex, come in." He froze for a moment, heart pounding, then slowly stepped into her office. The room wasn't large, but it was cozy. Piles of documents, strategic plans, and personal photos cluttered her desk, each item revealing Sarah's strength, determination, and the deep loneliness beneath her confident exterior. Alex realized that, aside from him, no one had ever truly seen the solitude hiding behind her composed facade. Sarah stood by the window, gazing out into the night, arms gently folded across her chest, as if to ward off the cold draft. "Do you know why I wait for your tea every Thursday?" she asked, without turning around. "No, I'm not sure," Alex admitted hesitantly. "Because it's the only moment each week that reminds me someone genuinely cares about me. Not for my position or career," she replied, turning to meet his eyes with a tender sadness. "Just me." Alex stood speechless, his throat tightening. Her words struck him to the core. All his life he'd been used to being invisible, but here, before her, he realized how desperately he longed to be seen. "I just wanted to do something small for you," he confessed, eyes cast downward. Sarah stepped closer, standing within mere feet of him. The space between them was small, but charged with unspoken challenges. "Those small gestures, Alex, are often the most important. They remind me what genuine care feels like, something I lost long ago after he left." Her voice softened at the mention of her late husband, and Alex saw the unhealed wounds and memories lingering in her eyes. Taking another step forward, she spoke with renewed resolve. "But I don't want to hold on to that pain forever. I want to move forward. And I want to move forward with you, Alex." Alex lifted his gaze for the first time, holding her eyes longer than he ever had. He recognized the sincerity there, neither pity nor fleeting curiosity, but a heartfelt invitation from a strong yet deeply genuine woman. I'm not sure this is right for you, Sarah," he said, his voice trembling. "I don't need what's right anymore. I just need what's real, what makes me feel alive," she replied firmly. Silence fell as Alex wrestled with his emotions. Then, a warmth and courage unlike anything he'd known filled his chest. At last, he nodded gently, as if making the most momentous decision of his life. From that night on, they met more often in that small office, keeping everything strictly confidential. Their evenings together always took place after the building had fallen silent. They talked about the past, their sorrows, and abandoned dreams. In the quiet moments between them, a deep, genuine connection slowly took root in their hearts. But Alex had no idea that behind the cold office wall, a pair of eyes watched their every move. Mark Hammond, the company's ambitious CFO, stood in the hallway's shadows. To him, Alex's growing closeness to Sarah wasn't just a threat to the company's image, it jeopardized his own carefully laid plans to win her trust and power. In Mark's mind, a new scheme was already forming, one designed not only to drive Alex away from Sarah, but to extinguish their connection at its source, regardless of the consequences, as long as power remained firmly in his hands. Inside the office, Alex and Sarah continued to share their souls, blissfully unaware that a storm of ambition and danger was gathering just beyond their door. The gentle golden light still wrapped them in moments of happiness, before the darkness of conspiracy would engulf them all. Since that night, as Alex and Sarah savored their rare, peaceful Thursday evenings together, they had no idea a silent storm was being meticulously brewed to shatter the fragile bond blossoming between them. From the shadowed corner of his opulent office, Mark Hammond was painstakingly outlining every cruel, ruthless detail of his conspiracy. But inside Sarah's private office, the world seemed to stand still. They sat together, two souls simply seeking a moment of solace amid the loneliness and pressures of their lives. Sarah often perched by the window, gazing out over slumbering Boston with a trace of worry in her eyes. Bit by bit, she confided in Alex things she'd never shared with anyone. The weight of the CEO's chair, the tough decisions, the tense board meetings, the constant undercurrent of suspicion she faced every day. "Everyone thinks I'm strong and unshakable," she whispered, her voice as soft as a summer breeze. "But no one knows how lonely I am. After every meeting, after every big decision, I wonder if I was right, and if I even have the strength to keep going." Alex listened, each word resonating deep in his heart and awakening a profound empathy. He knew that loneliness all too well. His life had drifted by in invisible silence, noticed only when he inadvertently became a nuisance. "You know, Sarah," he finally said, eyes distant. "I'm so used to being an invisible shadow. I clean this office every night, but no one's ever looked me in the eye or said a sincere word to me. I thought that was just how things were until you appeared." Sarah turned to him, understanding shining in her gaze. She rose, walked to the small table by the window, and picked up a sleek black Bluetooth speaker. Moments later, the sweet, soothing jazz of John Coltrane filled the room like a warm current weaving through their souls. "Do you know how to dance?" she asked, a gentle smile curving her lips. I'm not very good," Alex admitted, his cheeks burning. "That's okay," Sarah said, reaching out for his hand. "Just move to the rhythm of how you feel." Hesitant at first, Alex placed his hand in hers. In that instant, it felt as if a subtle spark traveled from his arm to hers, igniting warmth in both their hearts. They swayed softly across the small office, golden lamplight mixing with the darkness outside to create a space that felt both magical and secret. Every step, every turn, whispered of trust and harmony. Alex had never imagined he could feel so happy and at ease, standing beside this powerful yet genuine woman. But while they lost themselves in the jazz, just a few doors down, Mark Hammond sat before his computer screen, tension etching his features, his eyes cold with menace. Grainy footage from the hallway cameras, Alex entering Sarah's office, the two of them talking, dancing, laughing, played out before him. What looked harmless to most was to Mark an existential threat to the power he'd so carefully amassed. "I thought you were just an anonymous nobody, Alex," Mark murmured, voice icy enough to freeze blood. "But you've turned out to be the greatest threat to my plans. Sarah should be mine, not tangled up with a lowly janitor like you." Leaning back in his chair, Mark's lips curled into a sinister smile. A new, ruthless plan had taken shape in his mind. This time, he wouldn't merely separate Alex from Sarah. He'd destroy Alex's reputation and dignity, cast him back into oblivion forever, and bring Sarah firmly under his control. Meanwhile, Alex and Sarah continued to sway gently to Coltrane's melody, utterly unaware of the dangerous shadow closing in on them. When the last notes faded, they stood still, hands still clasped, speechless. In their eyes lay a truth they could no longer deny. Their relationship had reached a profound turning point, one they both craved and yet secretly feared. "We can't keep hiding forever, Sarah," Alex whispered, his voice trembling with resolve. Sarah met his gaze, her tone calm and certain. "You're right. We won't hide, but let me handle this." Alex nodded, trusting her completely. What he didn't yet realize was that her decision would ignite an inevitable clash with Mark Hammond, a powerful man prepared to do anything to stop them and destroy everything they'd built. The peaceful days Alex and Sarah shared didn't last long. At a place like Williams and Company, where every hallway corner and every glance carried curiosity and envy, no secret could stay hidden forever. What they tried so hard to protect shattered in one careless moment neither of them saw coming. One Monday morning, Alex entered the custodial break room and immediately sensed something was off. Colleagues who usually paid him no mind now watched him with curious, barely concealed contempt. "Hey, Alex, you're famous now." Jason, a younger co-worker, sneered, thrusting his phone in Alex's face. The screen showed a grainy photo, Alex standing in Sarah's private office, their eyes locked in a tender, intimate gaze. Alex's head spun. His heart pounded so fiercely he thought it might burst. Whispers rose behind him like invisible blades cutting at his pride. He couldn't think of a response. He turned and fled the room under the cold stares of his co-workers. Meanwhile, on the top floor, Sarah stepped into her office just as her assistant, Emily, rushed in, face pale with tension. "Sarah, you need to see this before the board summons you," Emily said, handing her a tablet showing the same photo Alex had seen, alongside a cruel caption, "CEO Williams and the mysterious janitor, love or scandal." Sarah froze for a heartbeat. Then, drawing on her experience and composure as a leader, she took a steadying breath. She looked Emily in the eye and said coldly, "Thank you, Emily. I'll handle it." Less than an hour later, Sarah was called to the boardroom. The moment she entered, the room crackled with accusation. At the head of the table sat Mark Hammond, his gaze icy and triumphant. Sarah immediately knew who was behind this. "We can't ignore a matter like this, Sarah," HR head Linda Evans began gravely. "You know that a personal relationship with a lower-level employee can seriously damage our reputation and culture." Sarah sat down, hands clasped on the table, her eyes fixed on Mark. She understood this was no routine inquiry. It was a setup to force her out. "Ms. Evans," Sarah replied calmly, "I believe this has been blown out of proportion. A single photo tells nothing, especially when it's being spread maliciously. The real issue isn't the picture, but some people's discomfort that I choose to care about someone regardless of status or skin color." Mark cleared his throat, interjecting slickly but provocatively, "Sarah, we're not here to police your private life, but you can't deny that a white female CEO getting close to a black janitor makes many uncomfortable. It doesn't fit the image or values our company strives to uphold." Sarah met Mark's gaze steadily. Her voice was soft but sharp. "Mr. Hammond, what's truly inappropriate? A relationship between two equals, or the prejudice you are cloaking in fancy words?" Tension snapped through the room. Mark's jaw tightened, his cheeks flushing with anger. He hadn't expected Sarah's response to be so forceful. "You're twisting this, Sarah," he snapped. "We're merely concerned about the company's image, something you should value above personal feelings. Sarah stood, surveying the board members. Her voice rang out decisively. I have led this company through countless storms without letting personal matters interfere with business. But if your real concern is narrow-minded bias about race and rank, let me be clear. I will never bow to those outdated prejudices. Alex Carter is a good man and a dedicated employee, and I won't allow anyone to use him as an excuse to threaten me. Silence fell. Mark ground his teeth, hatred and frustration blazing in his eyes. His plan had backfired spectacularly. Yet he did not intend to quit. As Sarah left the boardroom, she knew the real battle was just beginning. Behind closed doors, Mark leaned toward Linda Evans, his voice cold and threatening. We need stronger measures. We can't let Sarah keep acting on emotion. It's time the company chose her or our future. Meanwhile, Sarah returned to her office, her thoughts torn between concern for Alex and the realization that far greater storms lay ahead. She was strong, courageous, and ready to face them, but whether Alex, the honest, caring man she'd grown to love, could withstand such relentless pressure remained a question that tightened her heart with deep anxiety. Since that tense board meeting, the air at Williams & Company grew heavy, as though an invisible curtain had been drawn over every corridor. Day by day, Alex felt the cold, hostile stares of colleagues who had once greeted him warmly. Morning salutations gave way to an ominous silence, and their eyes now held undisguised contempt. In the small break room where Alex usually ate lunch, the lively chatter fell silent the moment he walked in. Conversations halted mid-sentence, as if he were an unwelcome intruder. He was used to being overlooked, but this open hatred made his chest ache. Jason, the co-worker who used to chat with him daily, now merely shot him distant, icy glances before turning away. Worse still, one morning when Alex opened his locker, a crumpled note fluttered out. Scrawled across it in mocking handwriting were the words, "Know your place and get out of here, you useless janitor." Alex clenched his fists, his heart dropping. He knew this was more than personal animosity. It was a targeted scheme, orchestrated by someone in power. Up on the top floor, Sarah faced her own mounting pressure. The key contracts that had once been the company's bedrock suddenly felt fragile. Some clients began citing image concerns to delay or cancel deals. Richmond Financial, the firm's biggest client, was the clearest threat, announcing it would review their long-term partnership over ethical and reputational worries. "Sarah, you need to think about the long-term fallout of this," Mark Hammond told her in her office, his tone calm but icy, his triumphant gaze unmistakable. "If we lose Richmond, the board will question your leadership." Sarah met Mark's eyes with unwavering resolve. "You're using this as a chance to push me out, aren't you, Mark?" she replied evenly. "But you've forgotten one thing. I've never feared losing this position if it means sacrificing who I really am." A mocking chuckle escaped Mark. "Sarah, you're always so idealistic and stubborn, but remember, ideals don't pay hundreds of salaries, and they don't protect our reputation in the public eye." "True reputation," Sarah said firmly, "is built on courage and integrity. I won't trade my dignity for a few lucrative contracts." After Mark left, Sarah sank back in her chair, exhaustion shadowing her features. She knew the fight ahead would be the fiercest yet, but she felt no hesitation. Pulling out her phone, she texted Alex quietly, "Meet me tonight. We need to talk." That evening, in Sarah's familiar office, they faced each other in heavy silence, yet tinged with empathy. Alex spoke first, voice low but determined. "Sarah, if this is hurting you, I can..." Don't, Sarah cut in, her eyes steady. You're not the problem. Their prejudice and envy are. I will never choose the easy way by giving up this genuine connection. Alex held her gaze, drawing strength from her resolve. I just worry you'll lose everything you've built. Sarah squeezed his hand, gentle but unflinching. I'd rather lose hollow things than live a lie. Do you know why I've succeeded? Because I face the truth, however hard. In that moment, Alex felt the full power of their bond. A love rooted not only in kindred loneliness but in the courage to challenge societal biases and oppressive authority. The next morning, Sarah walked into the all-hands meeting with unprecedented confidence. In the tense hush, before every employee and board member, she announced, I know there's been talk about my personal relationship. Yes, I care deeply for Alex Carter, a member of our custodial staff. But our company prides itself on diversity, fairness, and human dignity. We will not let anyone's worth be diminished because of their role or the color of their skin. This isn't about me. It's about who we are and who we want to be. Her words struck home. Employees exchanged glances, some moved, some uneasy, some angry. Mark Hammond stood at the back, fists clenched, his face cold and tight with rage. He realized Sarah had raised the stakes beyond what he'd expected, but he had no intention of backing down. Whispering to himself, he vowed, Sarah, you want to play big? Fine. I'll show you the price of stubbornness. Across the room, Sarah spotted Alex in the shadows. Their eyes met, and in that instant they knew they stood at the brink of the greatest battle of their lives, a fight they were ready to wage to protect their love and their dignity, come what may. After the all-hands meeting, Sarah knew she'd crossed a line she could never uncross. In the days that followed, every whispered conversation revolved around her. Some tones of admiration or curiosity, but many laced with criticism and prejudice. Still, she never regretted her choice, because she understood that staying silent would only let those biases grow stronger. One evening, beneath the soft amber glow of her desk lamp, Sarah sat alone at her personal computer, took a deep breath, and began to type with clear head and determined heart. Word by word, she poured out her truths about love and freedom, about everyone's right to love without limits of race, status, or any other barrier. This open letter wasn't just a personal statement. It was a call to everyone to re-examine the cruel, invisible walls society still builds. Yes, I'm a CEO and he's a custodian. Yes, I'm white and he's black. But when we stand side by side, all we feel is equality and genuine love. I will not apologize for loving with all my heart, nor will I bow to the outdated prejudices that try to diminish our dignity. The moment Sarah posted her letter online, it spread faster than she'd imagined. Within hours, it went viral, shared across every platform, drawing millions of reads, comments, and heated debates. Suddenly, Sarah and Alex became symbols of love triumphing over prejudice. They received waves of support from communities, activists, and those who'd suffered bias themselves. But beneath the applause, a fierce backlash gathered like a brewing storm. In his spacious office, Mark Hammond gripped his phone so hard his knuckles turned white. He threw it onto his desk in rage as notifications of support for Sarah stabbed at his pride. Sarah, you've overestimated yourself, he hissed, eyes cold. But your misplaced confidence will be your downfall. As he'd predicted, some of Williams & Company's biggest partners began slipping away, citing company image sensitivities. Friendly calls turned curt and hesitant. Polite refusals masked their retreat. Sarah watched lucrative contracts slide into competitors' hands and revenue forecasts darken. Every financial report felt like a blow to her heart. One weekend afternoon, Richmond Financial, their largest client she'd worked so hard to court, officially canceled its multi-million-dollar agreement. The news rocked the company. The board convened an emergency meeting, and Mark stood up with a triumphant glint, though his voice feigned concern. "We're facing our worst crisis ever, all because of one woman's thoughtless decision. If we don't act fast, the whole company will suffer." Sarah remained calm, though fatigue crept into her voice for the first time. "I understand the gravity, and I own my responsibility. But if we cave to these prejudices just to protect short-term profits, are we still true to the values we claim to stand for?" Mark cut in, his tone steel-edged. "Sarah, a company can't survive on ideals alone. If you truly believe in those values, you should resign now. Spare the rest of us the fallout." For the first time, anger flashed in Sarah's eyes as she stood. "I will not abandon my principles or run from responsibility. I wrote that letter with complete honesty and faith in a more equal future. I accept the consequences, but I will not back down." Leaving that tense meeting, Sarah's heart felt heavy, as if she'd fought a brutal battle. She made her way to the small office where Alex was working. They looked at each other in silence. Pain and hope, worry and resolve mingled in their gazes. "You don't regret it, do you?" Alex asked softly, his eyes full of concern. Sarah gently took his hand, her gaze tender yet steadfast. "You once told me you were used to living in the shadows, and I was used to wearing a perfect mask to please everyone. But this time, I have no regrets. Even if I lose everything I've built, I will never lose who I truly am." They stood there, in that quiet office, knowing the road ahead would be long and fierce, but ready to face it all, so long as they could stand together, defending their love and the higher values they both believed in. In their darkest days, when the pressure seemed to squeeze the last drop of hope from their hearts, Sarah and Alex chose to step out of the shadows of fear and loss and build something entirely new, something authentic, intimate, and far more meaningful than anything they'd done before. After leaving Williams & Company, Sarah sold some personal assets to raise seed money. They discovered a rundown storefront in a poor Boston suburb, a place once full of working-class memories, now abandoned, cold, and coated in dust. "We're going to bring this place back to life," Sarah said, her eyes strangely alight as she surveyed the weathered building. "This will become a community center, a place not just to repair old belongings but to heal emotional wounds and reconnect hearts broken by division." Alex squeezed her hand, a rare smile breaking across his face. "I believe in your vision. We'll make this a symbol of unity and hope." Within weeks, through tireless dedication, they transformed the shop into a vibrant creative hub. One half became a free electronics and furniture repair workshop for those in need. The other half, an art studio where Sarah held painting classes and cultural gatherings for children and seniors. From day one, Bridge of Hope drew heartfelt enthusiasm from neighbors. Working families lined up to have their broken items fixed free of charge. Kids clustered around easels. Elders chatted over steaming cups of coffee. A fresh, lively energy spread through the once dreary block. Word spread quickly. Local outlets picked up their story. Young volunteers came forward, and the center became a genuine beacon, spreading messages of solidarity, equality, and love across every divide. But that success also caught the eye of hidden power brokers in the city, none more dangerous than Mark Hammond. He still nursed a bitter grudge against Sarah, and he was furious to see her not only unbroken but more influential than ever. From his spacious office, Mark glared at a local newspaper headline: X. Williams and Company, CEO, sparks new movement, a symbol of unity and hope. He crushed the paper in his fist, rage boiling over. She can't keep running roughshod like this, he sneered to his aide. It's time we reminded Sarah Williams that this city doesn't tolerate rule breakers. In short order, inspectors swooped in on the center, scrutinizing licenses, labor safety, building codes. Though Sarah and Alex had dot all the I's preparation, the relentless, punitive audits wore them down. On several nights, vandals struck. Windows smashed, murals defaced with hateful, threatening scrawl. Those attacks sowed doubt. Whispers spread that the center threatened the neighborhood's peace. Sarah recognized Mark's scheme. He wanted to turn the community against her, to erode their trust from within. Late one evening, after cleaning up the latest vandalism, Alex sat beside Sarah, exhaustion and resolve mingling in his eyes. Sarah, we can't keep taking this in silence. He'll never stop until he destroys everything we've built. Sarah inhaled deeply, gazing at the hopeful artworks on the walls, children's paintings full of color and life. You're right, Alex. If we stay silent, we give him the power to wipe it all out. We need the community's full support. People must understand this isn't just our battle, it's theirs too, if they believe in fairness and unity. The next day, Sarah stood before the center, surrounded by residents and reporters. Her voice rang out clear and strong. Today, we declare we will not bow to sabotage. This center belongs to all of us, and we will defend it. Defend the message of unity and compassion we're building together. No force can break our bond, because our greatest strength is our unity. Applause and cheers swept the crowd. Sarah met Alex's eyes, and in that instant they both understood. The fight ahead would be fierce, but they were not alone. This community was their shield against the dark conspiracies lurking in the shadows. In a distant corner, a man in a hat watched, then called Mark Hammond. She's not going down quietly. Mark smiled, ice in his eyes. Then it's time to play harder. This game is only beginning. The moment Sarah finished speaking to the community, her heart brimming with confidence and hope, she had no idea that beyond the thick curtain of power and money, an even more ruthless force than Mark Hammond was quietly watching her every move. Richard Donovan, a powerful investor with vast wealth and tangled political ties across Boston, was infamous as a seasoned wolf in the real estate world. He'd long set his sights on the very neighborhood Sarah and Alex's Bridge of Hope Center had revived, a prime location for his next high-end development, promising millions in profit. Donovan didn't tolerate failure or obstacles, especially from those he deemed insignificant. When this small community hub became the biggest roadblock to his takeover plans, he knew it was time to act. One gray morning, as Alex unlocked the center's door, he found a plain white envelope taped carefully to the frame. Inside were distant surveillance photos of Sarah, walking alone at dusk, sitting alone in her favorite cafe, and a single typed warning: "Leave this place immediately, or this woman will be in danger. This is your final warning." Alex clenched the envelope in his fist, his heart pounding with anger and fear. He understood this was no prank, but a real threat from someone with the power and resources to monitor their every move. That same day, Sarah opened her email to find a message from an anonymous sender. The brief, chilling text read, "Vacate the premises, or you and your lowly boyfriend will lose everything." Sarah went cold. She realized this fight was no longer just about ideals or prejudice. It had become a genuine battle for their safety and lives. A few days later, a team of lawyers representing Donovan's real estate empire showed up at the center, brandishing legal documents and aggressive lawsuits. They demanded Sarah and Alex immediately cease operations and sell the property at a rock-bottom price, citing local safety and building code violations. "Mr. Donovan is offering you a peaceful exit," one lawyer said icily. "Refuse, and the consequences will be severe." Sarah squared her shoulders and met his gaze with steely resolve. "Tell Mr. Donovan we will never bow to these dirty tactics. We will defend this center at all costs." After they left, Alex pulled Sarah aside, worry etched on his face. "Sarah, they're not bluffing. Donovan is extremely dangerous." Sarah gripped his hand, her eyes blazing with determination. "I know. But if we give in now, everything we've built will be for nothing. We have to fight." In the days that followed, Donovan's pressure escalated. The center was repeatedly vandalized at night. Sinister late-night calls warned, "You think you can win this game? Leave now or regret it." Even friends and allies of Sarah and Alex received threatening messages, leaving them fearful and drifting away. Yet Sarah and Alex refused to back down. They appealed once more to the community. Standing before a crowd gathered outside the center, Sarah declared, "We've faced serious threats from a hidden power trying to destroy what we've built together. But we will not be intimidated, and we need you to stand with us against this injustice." Her call sparked an outpouring of support. Neighbors organized night watches, volunteer lawyers offered free legal counsel, and young journalists published exposés on Donovan's underhanded tactics. Realizing his scheme was unraveling, Richard Donovan sat in his lavish high-rise office, seething with anger. Crumpling a news clipping about the community's solidarity, he snarled into the phone at Mark Hammond, who had quietly provided much of Donovan's intel and backing. "I can't believe that arrogant former CEO and that worthless janitor have stirred up so much trouble," Donovan hissed. Mark replied with cold confidence, "Don't worry, Richard. This is just the beginning. I have a special plan for them, one they'll never overcome." Donovan cracked a cruel smile, his eyes glittering with ruthless resolve. He'd been insulted by Sarah and Alex's unexpected resistance, and that only fueled his determination to crush them utterly. Back at the community center, Sarah and Alex exchanged determined, anxious glances. They knew the road ahead would be perilous, but they also knew they were no longer alone. This wasn't just their fight, it was the battle of an entire community for justice, courage, and true love. Tension hung in the air as dusk fell, the dim lights casting shadows over the acid-stained splatters on the mural that had once been the pride of the community center. Sarah and Alex stood silently before the cruel vandalism, their hearts aching from the damage inflicted by unseen hands. Yet in their eyes burned an unbroken flame of resilience, now fiercer than ever. "We can't let them win this way," Sarah said, her voice firm. "We'll rebuild it and turn this wall into a symbol of unity, love, and strength they can never destroy." Alex nodded, determination shining in his gaze. "I believe in you, Sarah, and this community will stand with us in this fight." Just days later, Sarah and Alex rallied local residents for a mural repainting event, an act of defiance declaring that they would not bow to any force. Hundreds of neighbors, volunteers, social activists, and members of the press showed up, ready with brushes and paint cans to restore the ruined artwork into a living emblem of the community's courage and solidarity. As everyone worked side by side, vivid colors gradually returned to the wall. Sarah stood on a small platform before the crowd and spoke with conviction. "Today, we're not just repainting a wall, we're painting a message. A message that no power can divide or defeat us when we stand together. Never let anyone tell you that you can't dream, or that you don't have the right to fight for what's just. This wall will forever remind us that justice belongs to those brave enough to stand up for it." Applause echoed through the small plaza. From children to elders, everyone wielded a brush, each stroke a direct rebuke to Richard Donovan's conspiracies and those who aided him. In a luxurious apartment just blocks away, Richard Donovan watched the event unfold on a large screen, anger twisting his features. He could not believe how strongly Sarah and Alex had rallied their neighbors. His threats and influence had failed to silence them. "She's more stubborn than I thought," Donovan snarled to Mark Hammond, who stood beside him. "Mark, it's time for tougher measures. We can't let them keep running wild." Mark's lips curved into a cold smile. "Don't worry, Richard. I have a plan ready. We'll make them regret ever challenging us." Just then, Sarah's phone rang. A masked voice hissed a final threat. "You think a few murals are enough to win this war, Sarah? This is your last warning. Leave now, or lose everything, including that man's life." Sarah's hand trembled, but she regained her composure instantly. "Mr. Donovan, I know you're behind all of this, but we will never bow to threats. You will fail, because you're up against the power of an entire community." The call ended abruptly. Sarah drew a deep breath, glancing at Alex helping a young boy add finishing touches to the mural. In that moment, she knew more clearly than ever that their fight was no longer a private battle. It was the clash between justice and oppression, a struggle they could not afford to lose. By nightfall, the mural stood complete amid cheers and pride. Its vibrant scenes of community life, diversity, and solidarity shone brighter than ever. It was more than art. It was a powerful declaration of faith and hope. Hand in hand before the new wall, Sarah and Alex looked out at the future with resolve. They knew challenges still lay ahead, but they were no longer alone. A united community stood firmly behind them, ready to defend the values they held dear. What they didn't know was that, not far away, Richard Donovan and Mark Hammond were already plotting a far more ruthless scheme, one that would strike at the heart of the community center and force Sarah and Alex to face their toughest trials yet. The real battle was just beginning, and this time, their very safety and even their lives hung in the balance. Just as Sarah and Alex hadn't yet had a chance to savor the triumph of their newly restored mural, another darkness closed in, an insidious plot more vicious and elaborate than anything they'd ever faced. That late afternoon, as Alex was cleaning up after a long day at the center, he got an urgent call from a neighbor. "Alex, come to the shop at the end of the block right now. There are some men causing trouble." The man's panicked voice crackled over the line. Without hesitation, Alex sprinted to the scene. But as soon as he arrived, he sensed something was wrong. Two unfamiliar men were smashing property, and the moment they saw Alex, they lunged at him with brutal force. He tried to defend himself, but before he could react, police sirens blared and red and blue lights flashed down the empty street. "Stay back! Do not resist!" a police officer shouted as they wrestled Alex to the ground and forced him into the squad car. Alex was stunned, heart hammering. "Wait, wrong guy, I just got here," he insisted, but no one would listen. The attackers vanished as mysteriously as they'd appeared, leaving Alex alone in the handcuffs. Moments later, local news broke the story. Alex Carter, co-founder of Bridge of Hope Center, arrested in alleged violent altercation. In his opulent office, Richard Donovan watched with smug satisfaction, a glass of whiskey in hand. Mark Hammond stood beside him, grinning triumphantly. "The fastest way to destroy a community center is to destroy its leadership's reputation," Mark declared. "Let's see how Sarah handles this." When Sarah learned what had happened, her heart fell into a bottomless pit. She rushed to the precinct, only to be met with cold indifference and vague explanations from the arresting officers. "We have sufficient witnesses and evidence to hold him," one stern officer told her. Sarah immediately recognized Donovan's handiwork, but she knew outrage alone wouldn't free Alex. She needed professional help. The only name she trusted in this crisis was Raymond Archer, a veteran civil rights attorney renowned for decades of fighting injustice. The next morning, Sarah met Archer at a small cafe. In his silver hair and keen eyes, she saw decades of wisdom. After hearing her story, he paused thoughtfully, then said, "Sarah, you're up against Donovan, and beyond him, powerful forces. But if you and your community stand united, we can win this fight." Archer sprang into action, gathering evidence, inspecting the attack site, and tracking down credible witnesses. He soon discovered that the police eyewitnesses were all tied to Donovan's real estate schemes. Meanwhile, in the cold holding cell, Alex curled into himself, staring blankly at the ceiling. He understood this was no simple arrest, but a calculated act of vengeance aimed at both him and Sarah. Helplessness washed over him as he watched their efforts unravel. Outside, the community roared to life. Neighbors peacefully gathered at the precinct, holding signs demanding justice for Alex. They weren't just friends or neighbors. They were believers in the ideals behind Bridge of Hope. Sarah stood before the crowd, voice resolute. "Today, Alex is the victim of a vile plot meant to divide and destroy our community. We will not allow anyone to abuse power to silence the truth. We must stand firm, protect Alex, and protect our center." Thunderous applause and chants followed. The media swarmed, and public pressure on law enforcement became overwhelming. Under that pressure, Archer filed a formal complaint in court, accusing the police of wrongful detention and demanding a fair investigation. He held a press conference, boldly naming Donovan and his accomplices as orchestrators of this sham arrest. "We have clear evidence. Alex Carter is innocent," Archer told reporters. This was an outright conspiracy to undermine the community values that he and Sarah Williams have built. The backlash rattled Donovan. In his office, he slammed his fist on the desk and snarled at Mark Hammond. "Why has this spun so far out of control? You said it would go smoothly." Mark replied calmly, "We're only getting started. If they want a fight, we'll give them one." Back in the holding cell, Alex received a crumpled note passed by a sympathetic guard. "Sarah and the community are fighting fiercely for you. Stay strong. Truth will prevail." Clutching that scrap of paper, hope and gratitude surged through Alex. He realized this battle was no longer just about him and Sarah. It was a fight for justice, dignity, and the faith of an entire community, and they could not lose. Outside the precinct, Sarah stood by a window, eyes fixed on the horizon, determination blazing in her gaze. The legal battle had just begun, but she was unafraid because she wasn't alone. Alex stood with her, and so did the community, ready to fight for the truth, whatever the cost. As the trial date drew near, tension blanketed the entire city. News spread so quickly that the courthouse was packed, with reporters, citizens, and even the powerful figures backing Donovan. Sarah stepped into the courtroom, her heart pounding, yet her eyes remained steadfast. Beside her strode Raymond Archer, exuding confidence, his expression unwavering. Opposite them, Richard Donovan sat in the plaintiff's section surrounded by a formidable team of high-profile attorneys from Boston's top firms. Mark Hammond occupied the seat directly behind Donovan, a smug, challenging look on his face. The trial opened with forceful arguments from Donovan's lawyers. They presented carefully coached witnesses whose testimony sliced at the jury's sympathies. painting Alex as a violent thug and Sarah as an irresponsible CEO who'd used the community center as a cover for her own agenda. Each statement was meticulously prepared to put maximum pressure on everyone in the courtroom. Then Archer rose, calm and clear-eyed, facing the jury. "Ladies and gentlemen, everything you've just heard is part of a malicious scheme to destroy the reputations of Alex Carter and Sarah Williams, two young people brave enough to stand against power and injustice. Today, we will show you the truth that cannot be buried by lies." One by one, Archer called up members of the community whose lives Bridge of Hope had touched. A single mother choked back tears as she described how Alex had repaired her heating system for free during a brutal winter, saving her son's health. An elderly man, voice trembling, spoke of how Sarah's art classes had rekindled his joy in life. Each testimony rang out with emotion, sweeping away the earlier slanders like a cleansing wave. The courtroom atmosphere began to shift. Cold, skeptical gazes turned to Donovan, now under scrutiny. He sat stone-faced, though worry and anger flickered in his eyes. The turning point came when Archer played security footage from near the incident, video his team had unearthed just in time for trial. The footage clearly showed Alex being ambushed by two strangers. Moments later, police stormed in and hastily arrested him without proper investigation. A hush fell, then a storm of murmurs swept the room. The irrefutable evidence had shattered the prosecution's case. Donovan turned to Mark, voice low and furious. "I thought you had this handled. You've made a catastrophic mistake, Mark." Mark forced calm, though his mind raced. "We still have options, Richard. This trial isn't over yet, just wait." After a tense deliberation, the jury returned, and the judge announced decisively, "Based on the clear evidence presented, the court finds defendant Alex Carter not guilty. All charges against him are dismissed. Furthermore, the court orders a separate investigation into those responsible for this conspiracy." Applause erupted throughout the courtroom. Sarah turned to Alex. They squeezed each other's hands, their eyes shining with relief and joy. Community members embraced, celebrating this hard-won victory. Donovan rose, face drawn in anger. As he left the courtroom, he cast a cold glare at Sarah and Alex, a silent warning that the fight was far from over. As the crowd began to disperse, Sarah felt a profound sense of relief, but also a nagging unease. Scanning the distance, she spotted a figure in a black coat and hat, observing them intently from across the street. The mysterious man melted into the crowd the moment he saw her notice him. Sarah frowned, a surge of foreboding tightening her chest. Archer came to stand by her side, noting the worry in her eyes. He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. This trial was a victory, but it's merely one battle in a much larger war. Donovan isn't someone who quits easily. Sarah nodded, knowing that despite this crucial legal win, far greater challenges lay ahead. She looked at Alex, smiling triumphantly amid the community's love, and felt certain of one thing: they were not alone. The fight for justice and truth might be long, but together with their community, they would keep fighting until true justice prevailed. Across the street, in a hidden corner, the mysterious man reappeared. He pulled out his phone and whispered ominously, "The trial was only the beginning. Soon they'll learn this game never ends that easily." No sooner had Sarah and Alex celebrated their courtroom victory than they realized the fight was far from over. The hidden powers arrayed against them had grown more aggressive, shifting from legal maneuvers to direct threats against their safety and even their lives. Late one night, as Alex finished securing the community center's doors, a brick suddenly slammed through the glass, shattering it. A note fluttered down, reading, This is your last warning. Leave now or face unforeseeable consequences." Sarah held the torn paper, her hand trembling, but her gaze remained unwavering. Looking Alex in the eye, she spoke firmly into the tense night air. "They threaten us because they're afraid. We cannot back down now." Alex squeezed her hand, resolve shining in his eyes. "You're right, Sarah. It's time we confronted them publicly. Show everyone that truth and justice will never bow to threats." The next day, Sarah called a press conference right at Bridge of Hope. The center was packed with residents, reporters, and their most ardent supporters. Sarah mounted the podium, Alex standing strong beside her, their presence itself a statement of defiance. "In recent days, Alex and I have received direct threats to our lives," Sarah began, her voice clear and powerful. "Today, we stand here to make one thing crystal clear. We will never be intimidated by violence or fear. Those behind these threats fear us because they know this community is stronger and more united than any power they wield." Her words rang out across the crowd. Alex then stepped forward, voice heartfelt and impassioned. "We never chose this fight, but we will fight to the end for the righteous values this community believes in. No one can steal our dignity through cowardice or violence." Their statements spread rapidly across social media, sparking an outpouring of solidarity nationwide. Civil rights groups, activists, and everyday citizens spoke up to defend Alex and Sarah against the shadowy forces arrayed against them. In his luxury office, Donovan watched the conference on a giant screen, face dark with fury. He realized his power and influence were now openly challenged. Clutching his whiskey, he turned to Mark Hammond, voice cold but betraying anxiety. "We've gone too far, Mark. If this continues, not only my reputation, but my other ventures could be severely damaged." Mark frowned, conceding the truth reluctantly. "The community's too united and determined now, Richard. If we keep pushing, we'll lose everything." After a tense pause, Donovan sighed in frustration. "Then we'll stand down for now. But remember, this battle is far from over." News of Donovan's sudden retreat ignited joy and relief throughout the neighborhood. Peaceful protests transformed into celebratory marches, where residents linked arms, sang, and rejoiced in this crucial victory. Sarah and Alex moved through the crowd, receiving heartfelt hugs and words of gratitude from those they'd served. The once restored mural now glowed with renewed vibrancy, a clear emblem of resilience and unity. Yet, even in that moment of triumph, Sarah couldn't shake the memory of the mysterious figure she'd spotted across the street during the trial. She sensed his presence again now, a chilling reminder that the struggle hadn't truly ended. In a shadowed corner, the same man reappeared, watching Sarah and Alex among the cheering crowd. He pulled out his phone and whispered menacingly, "They think they've won, but not for long. Let them have their moment. Soon we'll strike the final blow, a blow they won't see coming." Sarah sensed she was being watched. She turned toward the street, but he slipped away into the darkness. She exhaled slowly, her heart a mix of joy and lingering unease. Alex tightened his grip on her hand and looked at her with deep affection and confidence. "We've won an important battle, but the war goes on. As long as we stand together, no one can defeat us." Sarah smiled, nodding with firm conviction and faith in their future. "Exactly, Alex. The fight isn't over, but we've proven the most important truth. Unity and justice are stronger than any darkness." There, surrounded by their community's support and love, they stood ready to face whatever came next, knowing that their true strength lay not in power or money, but in the trust and solidarity of the people standing beside them. The days that followed Sarah and Alex's victory over Donovan's schemes proved to be both the most challenging and the most luminous of their lives. Bridge of Hope was no longer just a community center. It had become a living symbol of resilience, unity, and faith in justice amid every storm. Every day the center bustled with activity. Children laughed and learned in the colorful art studios. Seniors gathered to chat over steaming mugs of coffee. Struggling families found real help in Alex's free repair workshop. What they'd built had grown far beyond its original purpose. It was now the vibrant heart of a proud, thriving neighborhood. Sarah and Alex often stood by the window, gazing out at the lively streets, their hearts full as they witnessed the positive change they'd sparked. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the rooftops, Alex squeezed Sarah's hand and said softly but firmly, "You know, Sarah, we've built more than a center. We've forged a fortress of the spirit, one no one can tear down. Even if our fight isn't over, we've already won by inspiring courage in everyone here." Sarah smiled and leaned her head on Alex's shoulder. "You're right, Alex. Donovan and his allies may not be finished, but we no longer fear them. As long as we, and this community, stand together, injustice will never prevail." Yet Sarah could still never shake the memory of the cold eyes of that mysterious stranger who'd watched them. Sometimes she thought she caught a glimpse of him lurking in shadowed corners, a reminder that more trials still awaited. Meanwhile, in a luxurious apartment just a few blocks away, Richard Donovan kept a close watch on Sarah and Alex's every move. Though he'd retreated under public pressure, his anger and resentment still burned fiercely. Looking out his window, he told Mark Hammond with cold resolve, "They may think they've won for good, but we always know how to come back. This time we failed. But trust me, Mark, this war will go on, and next time we won't make the same mistakes." Mark nodded gravely, admitting the truth he'd tried to deny. "Indeed, Richard. Sarah and Alex have grown far stronger thanks to the community's support. To beat them, we'll need more than our usual tricks." Donovan gave a sly, sinister smile. "We'll wait for the right moment. Once they let their guard down, we'll strike with the decisive blow." But contrary to their dark schemes, Sarah and Alex continued to inspire the community. They expanded social programs and never stopped advocating for those in need. Lawyer Raymond Archer remained a frequent visitor, always ready to provide legal support, ensuring the underhanded plots could harm them no further. One weekend evening, the community held a celebratory party at the center to mark Bridge of Hope's one-year anniversary. Twinkling lights, soft music, and laughter filled every corner. Standing before their friends and neighbors, Sarah's voice trembled with gratitude. "A year ago, when we opened this center, we never dreamed we'd receive such love and support from all of you. Our battle against hidden forces isn't over, but we will never be alone, as long as you're by our side." Alex added, his gaze unwavering, "We know the road ahead will bring more challenges, but so long as we stand together, no force can break the values we've built." Thunderous applause and cheers erupted. Some even shed tears of joy. The community had come to see itself not just as neighbors, but as one big family, ready to protect and uplift one another through any trial. Amid the celebration, Sarah spotted a familiar silhouette across the street, the same mysterious man, silently watching. Fear flickered in her chest, but this time she didn't look away. She met his gaze with unwavering strength, sending a clear message. "We know you're still out there, but we're not afraid." The stranger, sensing her resolve, slipped back into the city's shadows. Yet both he and Sarah knew this would not be their final encounter. Sarah turned back to Alex and the joyful crowd, her heart at peace. Hand in hand, they faced the future together, aware that many miles remained on their journey, but unafraid because they understood one truth above all. The fight for justice, unity, and love is never easy, but as long as they stand together and hold fast to their highest values, no challenge is insurmountable, and that is the greatest hope they could ever carry in their hearts. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.